Last time, fill up. Full breath out. And take a moment, notice how you're feeling right now, your thoughts, your emotions. Notice, without judgment. Interlace your hands, reach your arms overhead, draw your ankles together, point your toes forward, full body lengthens. Feel the ribs expand, the low back lift. And then pull your core in, slide your feet to the earth, bend your knees, and then draw your knees into your chest. Rock a little side to side. Take small circles to awaken your back body, clockwise and counterclockwise. And then just to start nice and easy, you're going to plant your left foot down, right ankle over the left thigh. So it may be very common for us, but we're going to take it a little bit differently. Place your right hand on your right thigh, press it away. Meanwhile, pull your core in and reach around your left hamstring. Draw your left thigh in as you draw your right thigh away. Keep an active right ankle here, hugging left thigh close as you press your right thigh away. Now turn your right fingers out, facing to the right of your right thigh, and help your right thigh bone move in a slight external rotation, so as if your thigh was wrapping to the right. Breathe in and breathe out. Keep the back of your neck long. One more breath. Exhale. Lower your left foot down. Find a half happy baby. Hold your right ankle or the outer edge of your right foot. Keep the left foot sealed into the ground. Hand under your left palm towards your left hip. Draw your right hand down towards you, and then bring your left thumb towards your, or left pinky I should say, towards your inner right groin. Draw your right hip crease down and away from your right rib cage. So my palm is sliding between my thigh and my rib cage so that I can keep my right hip crease pulling down away from my ribs. Breathe in. And then feel your abdomen rise into your left forearm and breathe out. Extend your left leg long and take a twist. Bring your left hand outside your right thigh. Twist to the left. Look over your right shoulder. Breathe in. Press your right thigh up into your left hand to resist. And then exhale, soften into that shape. Again, press your right thigh back up into your left hand and resist into the, or release into the twist. One more breath. Exhale, pull your core in, navel to spine, maybe even feel your belly button draw in. Come back to center. Slow. Both knees to chest, squeeze in. A little rock. And right foot down, left ankle over your right thigh. Ooh, the side's tighter. Left palm on your left thigh bone, and then reach around your right hamstring, draw in. So you're pulling your right thigh in and gently pressing your left thigh away. Relax your shoulders. Stay with your breath. Soften your jaw. And then work here, or wrap your left fingers out around your left thigh and give it a little bit of rotation. It's very subtle as you still draw your right thigh in. Breathe. Soften your facial muscles. One more breath. Lower your right thigh down. Half happy baby, slide your left hand to your left ankle or left foot. Bring your right palm, slide it between your thigh bone down to your hip crease. And then just notice how your left hip crease kind of hikes up. Soften it down to keep your pelvis neutral. As you ground your right big toe mound into the earth, breathe in. Breathe out. Once again, exhale. One more breath. Breathe out. Right leg long, twist over to the right, left hand across the left thigh, cactus or lengthen your left arm. Now breathe into your left rib cage, And then exhale, soften into the shape. Breathe in, resist your left thigh back into your right hand. Feel the strength required to do that. And then release it down. One more breath. Press your left thigh up into your right hand. And then release into the twist. Breathe in. Breathe out. Pull your core into your spine. Slowly come back through center. Both knees to chest. A little rock side to side. From here, plant your feet on the ground, hip width apart, arms by your sides, shoulders away from your ears, and then hold the outer edges of your mat. And imagine you're trying to move your mat towards your heels. From here, press through your feet, lift your hips up. Again, hold the mat, imagine you're moving it to your heels so you can open across the chest a little bit more. Lift your chin out of your chest. And then listen, wrap your inner thighs, hug them towards the midline of yourself. So make sure they're not splaying out, but that your thigh bone, your femur bone is in line from your hips to your knees. Breathe in, hold, feel your glutes engage, and then slowly lower your upper, mid, low back to the earth, and then let the low back return, that curve return. Pull your core in, draw your knees to your chest, rock a little side to side. And then your choice will come to tabletop pose, either rock and roll or roll to one side and come up. Nice and slow, take your time. Find your way to tabletop pose. Either swing your legs behind you or cross your ankles and step your knees back. Yeah, good. Beautiful, you guys. Once you get there, spread your fingers wide. So look at your hands. Take your thumb away from your pinky finger and notice if the knuckles lift. Seal them down into the earth. You might even physically press them down. Pull your navel in. Now notice if you're collapsing in your chest, push out of the shoulders. And then from here, inhale, lift your heart, your tail up, but press through your fingertips. Exhale, chin to your chest, round your back body, pause. Feel the space of the shoulder blades expand. Take 4 more. Breathe in, heart lifts, a soft back bend. Exhale, navel and round your back. Move with your breath, a few on your own. Just checking in with yourself. Relax your jaw. Exhale, round them. Neutral spine. Tuck your toes. Lift your knees, press up and back, downward facing dog. Pedal out your legs, keep your fingers spreading wide. Soften your neck down. And then for some of you, you might be rolling inward with your shoulders, roll them back. And some of you might be very hyper flexible in your shoulders. You might look to me where you're pressing your chest down to the ground too much. Lift up a little bit. Roll the shoulders back. And at any point, if you need more direction, look and pause what you're doing. Come out of the pose. So make sure the elbows and shoulders aren't rolling in. They're rolling back. Bend your knees if need be. Lift the sit bones high. And then from here, take your feet hip width apart. Now, this is a little check for yourself. Ground through one hand. It doesn't matter which hand. And take the other hand and feel your rib cage. Yes, I know it's just for a moment. Pull your ribs in and up so they're not splaying down. Strong core. And then plant your hand down. Check with your other hand just to keep the strength equal through both shoulders. Again, ribs not splaying. Pull the core in. And then lower your hand down, shoulder width apart. Relax your head here. Breathe in. Breathe out. Way forward, high plank pose. Maybe you need to adjust your feet back. Firm your glutes to your heels. Breathe in. Lower your knees down. Keep the back of your skull lifted so it's not jutting forward. And gently lower all the way to the earth. Good. Lift your right leg up in space. Scoot it back. Press the top of your right foot down. Lift your left leg up in space. Scoot it back. Press the top of your foot down. Press your pubic bone down into the ground. So you might even reach your hands under your pelvis. Press your pelvis down into the ground. Let your thigh bones feel weighted into the earth. Hands come back under the broadest point of your rib cage, shoulders back. Thread your heart forward, lift your chest. But keep your pelvis weighted into the earth. Shoulder blades squeeze, breathe in. And imagine you're dragging yourself forward as if your spine was lengthening out of your low back. Exhale, lower your right cheek down. Soften. Breathe into your belly here. Let it expand and let it release. Good. Low cobra again. Elbows hug back. Press the pelvis down. Inhale, lift your head and heart off the ground. So the pelvis stays fixed and we're lengthening the spine out and forward and up. Breathe in. Exhale, left cheek down to the earth. Breathe out. Again, belly breath in. Release, breathe out. Inhale through center, lift up. Maybe lift up a little bit higher, but there should be no pressure in your low back. Breathe in. Exhale, lower your forehead down. Take a breath. Press back, child's pose, hips to heels. Let's bring the knees together today. If need be, you can always put padding under your knees or ankles. Now, before you lower down to child's pose, breathe in, hold the navel in. If need be, you can always widen your thighs to make space. And then soften, ground the sit bones down. Snuggle the torso, chest down, let the forehead release. Again, you can always widen the knees to make space. And then just take a moment. Maybe you're feeling really tight. Stack your fists and rest your forehead. Let the shoulders release. Maybe even shake them to soften. Inhale. Exhale. One more breath. Breathe out. Reach your arms forward. Strong. Spread your fingers. Come up tabletop. Tuck your toes. Downward facing dog. Find all that same great work. Shoulders back. Neck long. Ribs in. Sit bones high. Spine is long, not rounded here. So sit bones high to the sky. Breathe in. Breathe out. Good. Look towards your feet. Notice if your heels are pulling inwards or jutting really far out. If you look back, your heels should be in line with your pinky toes. So the feet are very parallel here. Inhale. Exhale. Press your knuckles down, look forwards. Walk your feet towards your hands. And then hands to shins, halfway lift. So you're really pressing your shin bones back. Press your feet down and imagine you're separating the feet and out into the earth. Pull your rib cage in, maybe even bring your palm to your ribs, ribs in. Bring your other back of your hand to your low back. Make sure you're not rounding here, that the sit bones slightly lift. And then bring your right peace fingers to your skull and think, reach your skull forward in space, the top of your skull. Shoulder blades squeeze. And then bend your knees, fold in and down, chin to chest. Take opposite elbows, let the knees bend, let the head release, and gentle sway side to side. Soften your jaw. Expand your breath into your back lungs. Maybe even shift your weight side to side from right foot to left. And then bend your knees. Strong, come all the way to stand. Strong, straight legs. Reach up, rise up, firm your glutes. Look up to the sky. Hands to heart, chin to chest. Close your eyes. Take a moment. Check in. Breathe. Now, a lot of times when we come to standing, we'll reproduce the habits we normally have. So, we'll start from the ground on up. Look down. Feet. Now I can even see mine. My habits are still strong. Again, the outer pinky toe in line with the outer heel. Feet are parallel. Now press your big toe mound down, your big toe down. Try to lift your other smaller toes, move them away, and then lower them down. Might feel weird. Try to create space. like a gecko. Now, look at your knees. Make sure you're not locking your knees. Bend them actually a little bit and find some buoyancy. Feel your feet ground into the earth. And then from here, straighten the legs without locking the knees. And then bring your hands to your pelvis. So not relaxed, but a firm grip. We'll do some pelvic tilts. So maybe it feels foreign to you. So keeping that bend in the knee, draw your pelvis back in space. So you're arching your back. And then rock your pelvis forward so it tucks under. Just like that. Breathe in, pull the pelvis back. Breathe out, pull the pelvis under. Get used to that motion. Feel the pelvis move. Forward, this tucking is called a posterior tilt. And then when we arc the back, this is called an anterior tilt. So think of your pelvis like a bowl. Moving that bowl forwards, keep going, and back. Now notice how it feels in your body as you do this. Good, so this is a self-assist. We've been doing it already. And then try to find a neutral position for your pelvis. So not tucked under, not jutting back, but somewhere right in the middle. And then stand tall again. Roll your shoulders up and back. And then reach your arms up high. Relax your shoulders down. Bring one hand to your rib cage. Notice when you're lifting up, if your ribs splay, draw your ribs down. So the hip bones, try to contain from hip bone to rib cage. So we're not splaying, because that makes an arc in the low back, but contracting slightly. Good. Breathe in. Breathe out. Fill up. Chair pose. Bring your weight in your heels. A very common question here, where the pelvis should be. We're looking for that neutral line. So weight in the heels. This is a great check. It's also awesome for the shoulders. Bring the back of your left palm or back of your left hand to your low back. Bring your right palm to your low belly. Pull your belly in. Feel the belly draw in. And again, make sure that the low back's not arcing or tucking under. It's neutral. Strong core. And then switch. Left palm to the belly, back of your right hand to your low back. Find the core to strengthen and lift and lengthen. One more each time. Right palm to the low belly, back of the hand to low back. Pull in, draw in, weight in your heels. Last time switch, left palm to belly, right hand to low back, pull in. Yeah, it's hard, yeah? Reach your arms up. And then stand up tall. Notice if the ribs flare. Pull the core in. Breathe in. Open twist to the right. Right arm back. Keep the low back and that neutral pelvis here. Bring your right hand to the sacrum, your low back. Make sure you're not flaring out or pulling too far under. And then reach your left arm up high. As if you're gently sliding your sacrum down without tucking it under. Breathe in. Now it's a very gentle back bend. Bring your hand, left palm to your skull. Gently look up and lean back, but keep your legs strong, your pelvis neutral. It's a lateral with a tiny back bend. Breathe in, breathe out. Pull your core in, left arm lifts up high. And then from here, reach it forward, re-extend your right arm back. Inhale, sweep both arms up high. Twist open to the left. Unlock the knees if you have that tendency. Yep. Now left hand to your low back, sacrum, that flat bone. Right arm lifts up high. Ribs stay contained. Bend the elbow, hand behind your skull, as if you could lengthen your skull up and gently lean back. You'll feel a stretch across the front of your chest, the support of your own hand on your head, and the containment of your core with the pressure of your left palm. And inhale, right arm lifts up high. Reach it forward and re-extend your left arm back. Palms open out to the left. Inhale through center, breathe in. Exhale, bend your knees, sink your hips, weight in your heels. Feel the neutral pelvis, feel the core pulling in. Exhale, fold chest to thighs, release it down. Neck heavy, Bending the knees, breathe into the back body. Exhale. Inhale, halfway lift, hands to shins, shoulder blades squeeze, ribs in, neck long. Exhale, tent up on your fingers, or even better, this is where we'll bring the blocks in, hold your blocks, step your left foot back to a low lunge. Take your time if you're getting the blocks. Now, there's multiple levels on the block, so use to your discretion what feels best. Now, notice how your right hip flexor point, your right hip bone, is slightly pulling forward. Lift your hips a little bit and hug your right hip bone back. Lift, think right hip back. Lift your left thigh bone high. If you're not,
I was literally walking this way when you came out.
just make sure yourself is muted, and then lower your left knee down. From here, switch your blocks to the highest setting. Lift your chest, shoulders back. Then again, think right hip back, left hip slightly forward. We're obviously moving slow through this practice. Bring your right hand to your right thigh, press down, and then lift your left arm up high to the sky. Again, notice if the right hip is splaying forward, hug it back as if you were trying to pull your right heel towards you without moving. Reach up and gently lean to the right. Right hip back, and we'll sneak forward. And just like you're doing standing, bring your hand behind your skull, lean back, elbow back, and then find length and a little bit lean to the right. Breathe. Keep drawing right hip back. One more breath. Pull your ribs down. Inhale back through center. Left hand down to the block. Lower it to a setting, lower setting. Lift your left knee off the ground. Inhale, lift your right arm up high to the sky. Become aware of your left shoulder. It might be rolling in. Roll it back and you'll create more space and stability. And then gently lean back. Breathe in. Exhale, windmill your right hand down to the earth. Listen carefully. You can adjust your blocks so they're even. Spiral your back heel. 45-degree angles down. Rise up, warrior two. Now, we'll spend some time here. First, most accessible, especially if you're new, is heel-to-heel alignment. So you're pretty wide in your stance. If you've been practicing for a bit, maybe heel-to-arch alignment, but nothing narrower. Okay. And then, notice that if you have the tendency to lean forward, heart right over belly button, and bring your hands to your hips. Take the arms out of the equation. So first, we'll look at the right knee. Bring your right palm outside your right thigh bone. Notice if your right knee collapses to the left. And gently firm your right thigh bone into your right fingertips, so that the knee lines over your second to third toe, and then the knee is firm, stacked slightly round the right heel. So it's not too far forward. If you have pain, it might be a little further back, but it's in line. The thigh bone's in line with the second to third toe. Keep that, and then bring your hands back to your hips. You'll find that pelvic tilt here. Tuck your tail under, and then pull your tail back. So a lot of times, we have the tendency to pull the tail back in warrior two. Find that neutral pelvis, and then think, stay there, keep it stable. You might recheck your right knee, and then slide your hands up to your rib cage. Inhale, think as if you could pull yourself up longer, and then keep your heart right over your pubic bone. Relax the shoulders down. Seal your left heel down. You might even look towards your back left heel. Press it down, and then extend your arms straight and long. Yes. Now there's still some of you who are slightly leaning forward. So if you can look at me, we're not here, we're not back, but we're right in a long crown, nose, heart, belly, pubic bone, earth. Chakras. Yeah. And then maybe you turn your gaze over your right fingertips. And then notice the last thing, are you curling your toes? Try to spread them wide. Take up more space. Breathe in. Breathe out. Good. Left palm to your left thigh. Strong core, navel in. Flip your right palm. reach up and back. Expand back. Notice the left shoulder. Roll it back. Breathe in. Stay. One more breath. And then gently windmill your hands down to your blocks. Pivot on the ball of your back foot. Lower your left knee. Switch your blocks to the highest setting if you have them. And we'll move half Hanumanasana. Pull your right heel forward. Shift your blocks. They're not directly under your shoulders unless you're very tight, but have them slightly forwards. Lift your chest. Notice again, the right hip wants to pull forward. Hug it back a little bit. So you're almost going to feel your right heel trying to drag towards you. And this is great for the structure of the muscle because we're creating stability. Breathe in, neutral pelvis, and then soften the elbows back, but without collapsing in your shoulders. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, elbows back, soften. Without letting the head just drape down. Breathe in, lift up. Keep pulling your right heel towards you without moving it. Notice if your hips are swinging out to the left, keep them neutral. Breathe. One more breath. Exhale. And then unrush, lift your chest. Pull your right heel in, take your time. Lift your left knee. Walk your blocks forward a little bit. Step forward, feet hip width apart. Hands to shins, lift up halfway, ribs in. Make sure we're not splaying the ribs. Shoulders squeeze. Bend your knees, fold in and down. Head releases, inhale. Exhale. Bend your knees, strong straight legs. Come all the way up to stand firm. Your glutes reach up. Now when you get up here, what's happening with your feet? Try to feel them parallel. Keep a neutral pelvis. Keep your ribs pulling down. The shoulders relax. Inhale. Exhale. One more breath. Hands to heart. Pull your hands together. So you're internalizing verbal cues and self-assist into your own body. Breathe in and breathe out. Inhale, arms lift up high. Strong core, micro bend in the knees. Open twist to the left. So we've done this before where we're starting with the left side, shoulders down. Left palm to your low back, neutral pelvis. Right arm high to the sky. Bend the elbow, hand behind your skull. Think about lengthening and then leaning back without locking your knees. Breathe in, breathe out. Strong core, good. Feels a little funky. Right arm lifts up high, that's okay. Reach it forward. Extend the left arm back. Shoulders release down. Inhale, both arms lift up. Stable core. Neutral pelvis. Open to the right. Shoulders down. Palm to your low back. For structure, left arm lifts up high. Bend the elbow, hand behind your skull. Lengthen. Get tall, little back bend. But find the stability of the core. Breathe. Inhale, left arm high. Reach it forward. Re-extend your right arm back. Shoulders down. Reach back up through center. Breathe in. Chair pose, weight in your heels. Without using your hands. Neutral pelvis, strong core. Pull in and up. Breathe in. Sink down a little bit. One more breath. Fold, hands to blocks, or lower the blocks to a lower setting, release. Inhale. Exhale, navel to spine. Good. Hands to shins, halfway lift. Be intentional. And then hands to blocks, step your right foot way back. Low lunge, adjust your stance. Come up to your blocks, highest setting or mid setting, up to you. And then notice first what's happening with the hips. Hug your left hip crease back and gently lift your right thigh bone up. So we're not just slaying the hips forward or any way, but we're moving with awareness. Left hip back, right thigh up. Breathe. One more breath. And right knee down to the earth. Left hip crease back, move your blocks to the highest setting. Keep your right hand on the block, left hand to your left thigh. Again, left hip crease back. So if you notice my hips, they'll start to find some more buoyancy. And then I'm going to lift my right arm high to the sky. Press your left palm down for support. Breathe in. Lean to the left, left hip back. Right hand behind your skull, lift and lengthen, and then lean back into the left. Breathe. And feel how your own support is creating more space in your body. Inhale. Exhale. Neutral spine. Right hand to the block. You might lower one setting down so the block is more stable. Lift your right knee. Keep the hips lifted. Left arm lifts up high. Lean back and roll your right shoulder back. Yeah. Free the chest. Left hip crease back. Inhale. Windmill your left hand down, back and around to the earth. Adjust your blocks so they're equal. Ground and spiral your right heel down. Rise up slow, warrior two. We'll work all that same great movement. So if you need be, you can lengthen the stance or widen it east-west. Again, heel to heel or heel to arch. And then hands to hips to start, to take the arms out of the equation. And then bring your left palm outside your left thigh. Make sure the knee is not tracking to the right. Gently draw it to the left. Knee and line of your second to third toe. So you're feeling that. So the next time you come in to warrior two, you feel it and internalize it in your body. Ground your back outer heel to the earth. Maybe even look there, watch the action. Hands to your hips. Turn your heart to the right, but you keep your hips as they are. Now find the pelvic tilt, pull the pelvis under, and then pull it back. Move with breath. And your body, if you listen to that subtle awareness, you'll start to notice, oh, this feels like neutral here, where there's no pain and it feels stable. Then elongate your arms right and left. Shoulders down. Your arms are firm. Your gaze is steady over your left fingertips. Breathe. Feel the strength of your legs, the earth underneath you, and the freedom of space around your chest, your arms, your face, your throat. Fullness of your breath with the stability of the earth. Flip your left palm, reverse your warrior. Keep the alignment of your hips and your knee. Reach up and back. Expand, breathe in. Stay for your out breath. One more inhale. Hands touch all the way down, unrushed. Pivot on the ball of your back foot. Guide your right knee down and lift your blocks to the highest setting. Yeah, excellent. Lift your chest. And then slowly shift your hips back. Glide your left heel forward. Maybe walk the blocks closer to you. Lift your chest. Notice if the hips kind of collapse to the right. Keep them neutral. Lift your heart. And then imagine you're pulling your left heel towards you. You're going to feel lengthening and stabilizing happening in the same time. Neutral pelvis, heart lifts. And then as you exhale, elbows bend back, soften in. Breathe in, lift up. Exhale, soften and fold. Again, I can even feel my hips swinging to the right. Try to keep them midline. Breathe in. Exhale. Once more. Release. Lift your chest. Slide your left heel in. Rebend the knee. Tuck your right toes. Walk the blocks forward. Right knee lifts, step forward, right foot meets left. Hands to shins, lift up. Exhale, fold it down. Inhale, bend your knees, come all the way to stand straight up. Inhale. Exhale, hands to heart. We have one more standing sequence. Inhale here. Exhale. Arms lift up high, breathe in. Strong core, knit your ribs in. Exhale, fold down. Move the blocks wider if need be. Release. Halfway lift, inhale. Plant your hands, step back, high plank pose. Good. Lower your knees. Now, this might require some strength here, but we're going to work together. Now, when you lean forward, make sure your hips aren't lifted or sagging down, that they're neutral. Bend your elbows back and let your upper arms go parallel without the shoulders draping down. Hold for 3, you got it. Press through your fingertips, 2. Lower all the way to the earth. Legs long, shoulders back. Maybe even feel the kneecaps lift. Pull your heart forward and up, low cobra. Press your pelvis down. Breathe in. Exhale, lower to the earth. Bend your knees and gently sway your hips side to side. Excellent. Legs long. Either child's pose to downward dog, or tuck your toes, knees down or not, shoulders back. Press up strong core, high plank, neutral spine. Make sure there's no rounding or lifting in the low back. And then downward facing dog, hips high to the sky. And then spread your fingers, maybe even look at your hands. Roll the shoulders back. The arms wing back. The spine lengthens, the ribs pull in, the head relaxes. The sit bones lift. Inhale, lift your right leg high to the sky, toes face the ground. Look toward your toes, see them facing the ground. Big step forward, right foot between your hands. When I step forward, I have the tendency and I like to tent up on my fingertips. And then find your blocks. Spiral your back heel down. We're going to be here for a moment. Keep your left hand on the block. Now, bring your right thumb to your hip crease between your right thigh and your torso. Use your right thumb and draw your right hip crease back. Again, your feet should be at least hip width apart here. We're setting up for warrior 1. So the thumb is kind of sandwiched between your thigh and your torso. Reach your left arm forward. Whew, it's a lot of work here. Right hip crease back. Seal your back heel. Right shoulder releases back and away from your right ear. And then keep your right thumb in your hip. Lift up for warrior 1. The left arm is the only one that's lifting high. Your right thumb is still at the right hip crease. Keep encouraging it to come back. And then bring your left hand to your left rib cage. Keep the right hip where it is. Right hand to right rib cage. And then as if you could lift your rib cage up. Shoulders down, hand back. Lower your arms. And then circle them up. Release them down. Good. How's your right hip? Adjust it if need be. Breathe. Good. Feel with body. Straighten the right leg. Open up warrior 2. So heel toe your back foot a little wider. And then re-bend. Now we're not going to work those same alignment adjustments. Try to internalize them. So use the next few moments to check in with yourself. Maybe you use the adjustment or you internalize by looking and addressing your feet, your knee, pelvis, ribs, arms, shoulders. Good. Excellent. Flip your right palm, reverse triangle, straighten your right leg, reach up and back. So it's like reverse warrior. Now notice how the hips kind of shift here, right? So you're creating more space in your right hip crease. Now, from here, bring your right hand, back of the hand to the inside seam of your right thigh, just to start. Shorten your stance, pull your left heel in a little bit, and then you're going to shift your weight, hips pull back, strong core, slide the back of your right hand to the inseam of your shin. Now we're going to stay here to use more strength. I know the blocks are there, but we're not going to use them. No micro or no hyperextending in your right knee. Press the back of your right hand to your calf. Push. Now when you do that, the right shoulder will want to jump forward. Roll the right shoulder back. Keep a strong, stable line from the back of your right forearm into the calf, and then peel your left arm up high. If your neck is tender, just look neutral or forward. Good. Now from here, bring your left hand underneath your right rib cage. Hold it like a bear hug, and then roll your right ribs up. When you do that, the right shoulder is going to jut forward, roll it back. Keep pulling your ribs up. Good. And then bring your left hand to your left hip. Ground your left hip to the earth. Might feel like a little bit more of a stretch. Breathe. And then lift your left arm up. Again, think right ribs high, right shoulder back. It should feel like some work here, so it's not passive. A little bend in your right knee, look down. Pull your core in and in and in. Reverse your warrior, rebend. It might be a shorter stance, that's okay. Reach up. Exhale, windmill your hands down to the blocks. They should be on the highest setting. Step your left foot out and wide. So we're setting up for pyramid pose. So my feet are hip width apart now. I'm even wider than heel to heel. Good. Now lift your chest without using your hands. Think about it. Hug your right hip back. Let your right hip shift back. Don't use your hands. Try to internalize it. Right hip back. Lift your chest and then fold. Maybe your blocks go down a setting. Elbows back, shoulders soften. You can relax your head here. Notice if the right hip goes forward. Pull it back. Breathe. One more breath. Exhale. Inhale, lift up. Okay, adjustment again. Come to the highest setting of your blocks. We're going to do revolve triangle. Keep your left hand to the block. Make sure it's underneath your shoulder or slightly wider. Bring your right palm, fingers facing towards the back of your mat. So away from you. My palm's on the back. Now for here, you'll feel how the right hip pulls forward. Draw your right hip back and then think lengthen your back as if it's a table. You might even need to step your left foot wider here. That's okay. Make sure you're not collapsing in your left shoulder. And then stay here, neutral pelvis. The sacrum should be neutral and very little rotation to the right. Twist to the right without lifting your right hand today. Right hip back, pull your core in. Breathe. You might feel your outer IT band lengthen here, your outer glutes. One more breath. Exhale, look down. Right hand down. Listen carefully. Lower your blocks to setting. Step your left knee back. And then step your right knee back. Sink your hips back. Child's pose. Arms reach by your ankles. Palms face the sky. Sink low and ground down. You can always widen the knees. And not only do we see child's pose as a place of rest, but see it as a pause for integration. So walk yourself through what you just did. The alignment cues and how they apply to your body. Breathe in and breathe out. Again. Exhale. And then we'll move through that on the left side, and then we'll cool it down. Reach your arms forward, maybe widen the blocks out. Come up tabletop pose, widen the knees. Maybe shift your hips side to side this time. Take any autonomous movement, a cat-cow if need be. Spread your fingers, pull your core in, downward facing dog, hips high to the sky. Pedal it out as you wish, shoulders back, strong hands, ribs in, neck soft. Left leg lifts up high, look to your toes, they should face the ground, neutral pelvis. Press through both palms, breathe in. Look forward, giant step forward, maybe tent up on your fingers as you get there. Take your blocks to this highest setting. Spiral your back heel down, make sure about hip width apart. Right hand stays in the block. Left thumb between thigh and torso. Hug your left hip crease back. Firm your right quad. Make sure you're not rounding in the upper spine. Reach your right palm forward. Keep the left hip grounded. Inhale up, warrior one. Left hip stays back. Soften the right ribs forward. Good. Right hand to your right rib cage. Lengthen the ribs up. Left hand to left ribs. Lift the ribs up. Shoulders down. Then circle the arms out and up. Relax the shoulders and then internalize. Breathe. Make sure your right hip's not collapsing. Press your thigh bone up to the sky, the back leg. Breathe in. Breathe out. Straighten the left leg. Ease your way open, warrior two. Lengthen the stance as need be. And then find your way through buoyant action. It doesn't need to be straight A to Z. So find your way there. Self check in by looking, observing, using your body. And then extend your arms. Spread your toes, soften your jaw. Breathe out through your nose. I'm just going to come over here. Someone's not muted. Steady your breath. Good. Ribs in. Excellent. Reverse triangle. Straighten the left leg. Reach up and back. Breathe in. Now, from here, shorten your back foot. Heel toe your back foot in one round. And then hips pull back. Bring the back of your left fingertips to the inner thigh first. Breathe in. And when you're ready, lean forward and down a little bit. Back of the hand to the calf. Right hand to your rib. Press the back of your hand to the calf. And then roll your left shoulder back. Reach your right fingertips under your left ribs. Pull your left ribs up like you're spiraling your left ribs high. Roll your left shoulder back. Right hand to your right thigh. Press your right hip down. Find that structure without locking your knees, and then right arm high. Again, make sure your left shoulder is rolling back. You should feel a lot of work happening right now. One more breath. A little bend in your left knee. Reverse your warrior slowly up and back. Cartwheel your hands down to the highest setting of your blocks. Step your right foot out and wide. In and out, I should say. Good. Adjust your feet as need be. Lift your chest. Think left hip back. Steer your left hip crease back. Lengthen your spine. Round your back heel. So make sure the right leg isn't passive here. And then soften your elbows, fold in and down. Inhale, heart lifts high. Keep doing that. Exhale, elbows bend back. Good. A few more. Breathe in. Fold in and down. Beautiful. You guys look great. Relax your head if it feels okay. Take a few breaths. Good. Inhale, lift your chest. Keep your right hand where it is. Bring your left palm to your sacrum, that flat low backbone. Think left hip crease back. You might need to widen the stance or shorten it. And then grow out of the low back here. From here, gentle rotation, left ribs up. It's very limited. That's okay. We're trying to keep neutrality here. Pull the core in. Breathe. So that the twist just moves to the upper spine. Inhale. Exhale. Good. Look down. Left hand to the block. Take this slow. Bend the left knee. Lower your right knee down to the ground. No rush. Step your left knee back. Widen the stance as need be. Child's pose. Arms slide back towards your heel. Maybe roll the forehead side to side. And then an option to self-assist, you can lift your torso up, slide your thumbs in between the thighs and the torso, and then as if you could slide your hip bones down and back. And then roll the shoulders back, just for a moment, to snuggle the hips a little bit deeper. And then keep that, release the arms back down. Good. Reach your arms forwards in front of you. You can slide the blocks side to side. If you fall, it's okay. Come up, hands and knees. Good. Breathe in. And just find stability. And then from here, walk your knees to the left. Lower one hip down, and then swing your legs out in front of you. Good. Legs long. From here, bend your knees a little bit. Now notice the pelvis, even when now we're seated. So the tendency, if we sit a lot, is to round and tuck the pelvis. Lengthen the legs again. Lift your hip. Draw your hand under your glute. Draw it back a little bit. Not to a place of too much stretching, just so that you're aiming to find a neutral low back. It might feel a little bit different. Bend your knees. Lift your chest. So we're not rounding into the low back. And then walk forward. Find your blocks outside your calves. Rest your forearms today. Now press the blocks down. The fingers might wrap over. Use the blocks as if you're pushing down to lengthen your spine. The knees are bent, and then soften to fold. You might move the blocks slightly forwards. Lift up, and then soften to fold. They might slide forward more. Maybe it's just the hands, but let the elbows sink down so that the shoulders can relax. Then, if it's okay, the neck can soften. Then it's okay if you can keep the low back long, legs lengthen, then maybe hold your feet or ankles or shins. Shoulders away from ears, not forcing. Pull your navel in and up. Let the thigh bones, if the legs are long, root down to the earth. And then inhale, pull the core and bend the knees, hands outside your calves, slowly come up slow. Good, sit with yourself for a moment, maybe bend the knees, sit tall. Last seated pose, bring the soles of your feet together, knees wide, Baddha Konasana. Hold your ankles. It doesn't need to be super close to your pubic bone. Lift your chest and then lean forward. Again, make sure you're not rounding down here. We're aiming for length. And then you might hold the feet. Two things. You can either a little therapeutic kind of massaging of your feet, or maybe you use your elbows and forearms to gently soften the thighs down, or both. Shoulders back away from your ears. Shoulders back. Navel to spine. Maybe you close your eyes. Breathe in. Breathe out. Inhale up slowly. Pause, sit tall. Hands outside your knees, draw them together. Bring your hands back, take your feet as wide as your mat, shoulders back, flex your toes to the ceiling, and then we're just going to rock the knees to the right to get a little rotation, and then through center to the left. Now while we do this washing of the knees, I want you to focus on the internal rotation. So as the knees go left, the right thigh bone is getting internal rotation. And as the knees go right, the left thigh bone is getting internal rotation. Now take a moment as you do this and notice which side feels any tighter or different, and go at your own pace. Seal the air out of your knuckles. Good. One more time each side. Breathe. Really having awareness of the subtle shift of energy. And then once you're even, feet neutral, make sure you have enough room behind you. Find your blocks. Slowly roll all the way onto your back, knees to chest. Relax your skull, sway it outside to side. Find one block, plant your feet. Now, this must feel comfortable. If it doesn't, please don't take it. I'm going to take bridge pose. I'm going to take my block on the flattest, shortest setting and slide my flat sacrum, that bone that we were touching in the low back, onto the block. Again, if it doesn't feel comfortable, please don't. It's not on the muscle tissue of the low back. It's right at the, if you're looking at your underwear line or your pant line, and down from there. Now, again, only if it's comfortable. If not, we can talk about it a little later. Pull your core in. Stay here, or we're going to take waterfall pose. Bend your knees. Maybe the legs high to the sky. Again, if it doesn't work for you, you can take the supported bridge, or eventually just lower all the way to your back and lift your legs to the sky. You can always hold your hamstrings. And then eventually, hands to belly, if that feels okay. Tangibly feel your abdomen move. Feel the energy shift and down regulate. Quiet your mind. And then bend your knees. Pull your core in, plant one foot down, and then the other. Re-engage your core. Firm your glutes, lift your hips. Slowly lower your spine to the ground. And then ease your legs long. Shake your legs out side to side. Good. And we'll do a self-assist in Shavasana here. So from here, shoulders down. So press to the back of your skull, shoulders pull down to your heels. And then take your fingertips, reach to the place where your shoulders meet your neck. The fingertips are grazing the neck. Give yourself some pressure on that space and drag your fingertips up through the back of your neck to your skull. Hold your skull for a moment. Squeeze the skull. Squeeze all the way to the top of your head and then release. You might even do that once or twice. It feels pretty amazing. So you apply the correct pressure into the upper shoulders, along the cervical spine, gentle dragging up, base of the skull. Hold your skull, lift it, squeeze your head a little bit, and then relax it down. Good. And then the last thing, take your thumbs to your third eye. Now press into the skull and down towards your nose slightly. This is very down regulating. And then widen your thumbs over your eyebrows, gentle over your temples, over your jawline. And then maybe even cover your face with your hands for a moment. And then soften your arms down. Scrub over your ribs. Just a gentle touch, a sweep of your hands over your thighs, your hips. And then release them down, palms up. Make sure you have space. Breathe in. Breathe out. Give yourself a few moments here to process, to nurture, to reflect, to receive. And in your stillness, take a slow breath. Exhale. For sake of time, we'll gently reawaken, but before you move, notice how you feel. Take your thumb and graze your other four fingers. Rock your head soft and sweet side to side. Roll your wrists and ankles. Yawn. Sigh. Gentle engagement of your core. Slide one foot and the other towards your sit bones. Pause. One knee and then the other to your chest. Roll to the fetal position. Pause. Arm under ear. And then gently press yourself up. Close your eyes. Breathe in.
I don't know where that is.
Breathe out.
I don't even know when we got them, where we got them.
Inhale.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't at all.
And exhale. Palms together in front of your heart. Sitting tall. Lift your heart up to your thumbs. Close your eyes if you haven't already. Take a moment to acknowledge your efforts in this training, your self-growth, your transformation, your application of this practice, not only to your body, but into your life. We breathe in together. We breathe out. We bow the thinking mind to the wisdom of the heart. And from this place of love and light, we seek to embody it truly and fully in our lives. And from this place, we say, Namaste. Thank you so, so much. Let's see, let me check in on time. So I went over a little bit, but it was necessary. So take the next 3 to 5 minutes to sit with yourself, to grab some water, to use the restroom. And we'll jump right into the material right in 5 minutes. So I'll see you guys in just a moment. Thank you. My heart's really full. People from all over the world learning how to practice self-assist using props in their own body. So beautiful. Okay, welcome back. Hold on, I can't see you guys. Am I in here? There I am. Okay, there. All right, let me see these comments real quick. Cues. Okay, good. Yeah, we'll go over all the pros and cons. Okay, good. I hope you guys enjoyed. Yes, self-assisting is so powerful. Good. I'm glad you guys are enjoying. Felt amazing. Yeah, subtle adjustments can do so much. I love downward dog. Should my heels be on the floor? I've never done this pose. I've done this pose a lot, but my heels never touch the ground. That is totally okay. That your heels might not touch because your Achilles tendons might be shorter, might be your calves. My partner, his heels don't touch, and he's been practicing for decades. So don't force it if that doesn't happen. I have to sit out on any physical practice. Don't get too excited after watching Dumbo with my kids last night. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. Well, I'm so sorry. That sounds like a fun way to get injured, but I apologize that you're experiencing some pain. I'm new. Does everyone watch from their phones or laptops? Yeah, it's, you'll get used to it with the Zoom. It's, it's kind of tricky. Some people will just listen to cues. I recommend using your computer so you have bigger image to look at. iPad. Yeah, that's okay. The ideal thing is to learn the names of the poses. Yeah, and then really this is a great time to start internalizing the names so that you can move more seamlessly into them. Excellent session, thank you. Okay. Oh, good. Okay, so here we go into the content. Let me move back to everyone. All right. Thanks, y'all. Okay, so that was a practice on self-assisting, which might be new for some of you. Maybe it's familiar, but we will work with it. So again, please keep yourself muted because unless you need to ask a question or you have a comment, please share. I'm going to be sharing my screen. So what that means, some of you have heard this conversation before, but sharing my screen means I can't see all of you. So, and also I don't have access to look at your comments. So this is a great opportunity to practice vocalizing your questions. What type of bolsters? Oh, Manduka or Hugger Mugger. They're great. I'm writing them down here. They're universal, the width and the length. Okay. All right. So again, I'm not going to be able to, I'm going to see that you're commenting, but I can't look at your comments. So you'll have to unmute yourself.
This is Jasper. Zoom told me this morning when I logged in that if you hold the spacebar, it temporarily unmutes you while you're holding the spacebar, and then when you let it go, it mutes you again.
Oh, I want to try that. Okay. Oh. Huh. I don't know. That's great. I don't know why it's not working for me. Maybe because I'm recording. I'm not sure. All right. Yes, you can always exit and come back in. It's open. All right, so here I go. I'm going to give me a second to share my screen with you guys. Don't want to end. See my little chaotic desktop for a second. Like my tab down there, if you caught it, it says adulting. Okay, here we go. Oh, that's not where we want to start. That's way at the bottom. Okay. So, oh, I got you guys the wrong one. I apologize. Hold on. That's not what we want to look at. That was last week. All right. Here we go. Okay, assisting and adjusting. So y'all can see this. I can only see like 3 of you on here. So again, I'm not going to be able to pull up your comments because I'm sharing. So please unmute yourself and ask. I love questions, so please feel free to comment and share. So why offer assist or adjustments to our students? Why do we do it in the first place? So this is from Leslie Kamenoff. Assisting is teaching. He is excellent educator. He wrote Yoga Anatomy, which is a great anatomy book. And he's also the founder of the Breathing Project in New York City. And he basically says these are just different words for the same thing. It's all communication. So the idea is communication, and it takes various forms, whether that's verbal, tactile, visual, or proprioceptive. So if we start thinking about not only our language or perhaps the way we're cueing or physically working with our students, if we have the idea and the intention that it's based upon a form of communication, this will help us in our teaching, that we're communicating to our students in different forms. So here we are, it's a photo of a woman. She is giving adjustment. It's a form of communication, and why? We'll get a little bit more into that, but now the student is feeling the support of her teacher, whether she's creating more length and stability in the pose. The cool thing about this image that I chose was also she's using a prop herself, so that the teacher isn't doing too much for the student, rather just supporting the lines of energy that are already there, if that makes sense. And we'll get into that. And we're just touching the tip of the iceberg. Everything about assisting, whether verbally or physically or both, is to help the spirit of the student to shine fully so that their innate radiance adds more light to the world. And this is another educator in the Anusara lineage. Now, again, this is looking at, these quotes are interesting because one is very much in terms of focusing on the alignment and structures of the body, and the second quote is more about the energetics of how we are communicating, whether it's verbal or physical, to our students, right? So we don't want to obviously force, we'll get into that as well, but we're trying to support what is already there. Everyone's innate line form of what I'll call prana, that vital life force energy, is flowing through us all. So that is why this world exists, why assist or adjustments exist. Okay, we'll get a little bit more into this. Different paths of learning. So we were talking about forms of communication, but there's also very unique forms of learning, which this is why I am very fascinated with assists and adjustments. So there's this VARC method, and probably you're familiar with it. Maybe the terminology is slightly different, but there's visual learners. So people who prefer to see information, to visualize the relationships between ideas. Me, that's me, totally me. Then we have auditory learners. So people who really appreciate hearing information and enjoy questions and dialogue to engage in conversation. So if that pertains to you, if you feel like you fall into that category, please feel free to ask and comment. It is going to help benefit the whole group. Reading and writing, those who like to interact with text, especially enjoy quizzes, written tests, handouts, or even reading along with you. That's how they integrate and process information. And then there's the kinesthetic individual, also me, that they prefer hands-on experiential knowledge-based learning. So, and to move it through a practice in itself, that is an experimental knowledge-based way to learn, right? And then I'm hoping to, I've talked about this in multiple trainings, but this applies best here for this topic. Visual learners, that's why I like to have a keynote for each lecture, also that you can come back to. I'm speaking about it, so I hope that is, and that we're speaking about it together. So that's another way to integrate. And then for those who like to write or notes as well, please do support your best learning method, or all of them. So here we are. We have visual, reading, writing, auditory, and kinesthetic, right? And it can look like different for different people too. So just to know that there's a reason why I'm sharing this, because we're talking about more of a visual-based kinesthetic experience with assisting in adjusting. Yes. Okay. Please stop me at any point if you have any questions. So what is the difference between assisting and adjusting? Assisting is more about support, aiding, or helping this student. So it's simple. It's a softer approach to support and increase subtle shifts of awareness for the practitioner. So just think assisting is simple and more soft. And adjusting is to change something so that it fits, corresponds, or conforms. So this is more physically active with the intention of bringing more depth or stability for the practitioner.
Sorry, could you give an example of like a verbal assisting?
Verbal?
Yeah, like if you're assisting someone verbally, what would you say?
That would be based, that's a great question. So a verbal, and we'll get into that too, is utilizing your verbiage through cues and alignment and anatomy. So for example, you're in warrior 1 or warrior 2, a verbal assist would say, bring the outer edge of your back foot firmly into the earth. So it's just feeling more comfortable with our cues. So I've been around multiple studios. I've taught in through different studios and different trainings. And it's interesting when I think there's a lot of value of always being a student. So because we should be always lifelong learners, that keeps us humble and it keeps us growing. But I'll notice a lot of times that I'll go to different studios and it's warrior 1, open up warrior 2, reverse your warrior, vinyasa. That is lacking verbal assisting. Do you see what I mean by that? That is cueing a body through a generic motion or a posture without any fine details and nuances to create more structure and support for the body or more space and length. So it's finessing our language so that we can, in hopes, communicate to not just the person, but to the person's body to apply and integrate those cues. However, I'll hold off actually. So that's what an example of verbal assisting would be.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Great question. I'm glad you asked. So and for some of your homework, okay, so some of you are new and you're like, whoa, this is a lot. Give yourself some grace. It's maybe a little fire hydrant kind of receiving of that information. So let it integrate as it will. And those who are in this training and you're working through your content and moving forward, especially when you start writing or filming your sequences, challenge yourself to bring more detail to a posture. And don't overdo it, but maybe think 2 to 3 verbal cues. And the more you do this, the easier it's going to become. It's like riding a bike. So you apply it, it becomes a habit. So ethics of teaching. This is very important. Oh, go ahead.
Can I ask a quick question about the assisting and adjustment? So I know with kids, like you're technically not supposed to really adjust them, as like because their growth plates aren't like finished. So can you assist them technically then, because you're not actually like, I guess verbally or things like that, as long as you're just doing like a softer approach in that take?
Great question. Yeah, for children, this is great. Do you work with children right now?
Well, we have 5. And they want to do yoga with us and stuff, and we want to make sure that like we don't do anything that would like hurt them in the process or anything. And eventually we would like to also work with children.
Okay, beautiful. So yes, and also with children, like there's really no need, because especially with yoga, they're see it more as play and experiencing, that the alignment for them, it's not as important, right? They're like you were saying, they're still growing, and also their bones aren't fully developed, so there is also actually less risk of an injury. They're more like Gumby-esque. So, but at the same time, you don't want it to feel regimented for them. And if it feels like that, it's going to feel like their autonomy is robbed, even though they're not going to be able to understand what that means. But if they're constantly being like, no, you need to do this and this and this, they're going to lose interest in it, and they might even resent it, right? So you can just generalize their shapes for them. And really it's for them at this point in time is just getting connected to their body and their breath is the most important thing. Great question. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So ethics of teaching. This is super important for everyone, especially if you are teaching or are going to be teaching, which you're in teacher training. So we'll see where this journey will take you. The main thing of teaching is you are seeking to serve your students. You are serving your students. You have to put yourself in that mindset that you are in service of your students, and that your ethics need to be aligned with your intentions. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? And if what your intention is to serve your students, this is going to make it easier for you of asking yourself, why? My intention is to serve my students. And if you have that mindset, everything else will follow a lot more smoothly, right? Because I see it, I've seen it. You might have watched documentaries. I'll give you some to watch. That when you're teaching, there is a natural power system at play. You have a teacher or two or whatever it is, a leader in the room, and 5, 10, whatever, hundreds of people listening to the cues and the verbiage and the language of the teacher. And so what happens is a lot of times students will put that teacher in their mind on a pedestal and think that their teacher is holier and mightier than they are, and that sets up a power system, whether the teacher means for it or not. However, this will be lessened, like not as intense, if the teacher stays in this humble space as I'm serving, I'm serving, I'm serving. So teaching in itself is a practice just like yoga. Okay, so that's huge, right? You got to remember why. You have to ask yourself why you're going into this. What's your reason? What are you really wanting to, like, why are you interested in teacher training? What brought you to this point? What do you hope that comes out of it? Ask yourself these. You maybe even write them down. And at the same time, they're great to come back to and check in with, because we change, we shift, right? Something happens to us, we experience something, and then we have a paradigm shift. Our mind shifts. If there's a comment, I can't see it, I apologize. But again, it's being a servant. It's offering your knowledge, your skill, your love, your compassion with openness to help uplift others to their highest self, not to your highest self. Yes, you're guiding them to experience their inner innate potential. Okay, consider, yes, I said this, consider your teaching a continuation of your practice. So they're not different. Teaching can be a practice in itself. Some of you have listened to my yamas and niyamas lecture. If you haven't, I highly encourage you to do that. Someone's writing notes on here. And if you're wanting more, I also have an additional online course through My Vinyasa Practice that's on all of the 8 limbs, with practices and journal prompts and written material if you're looking for that, of weaving the yamas and niyamas into your teaching. That's the whole course. So yamas and niyamas are these moral, ethical codes of conduct that we can live our lives by if we choose. So the yamas are nonviolence, truthfulness, non-stealing, moderation, non-attachment. I just kept the English here for now. And then the niyamas: purity, contentment, discipline, self-study, surrender. Now I know that each of these words will mean something unique for you in your own experience, and know become curious if any of these words are also alarming or sit with you in a very interesting way, and sit with that and ask yourself why. Again, there are words that mean deeper things than the word itself. And it's also, remember, it's a translation from Sanskrit. So for one, I'll say like purity can also mean cleanliness, right? And that can mean just physical hygiene, yes, right? But also the content of our mind. What are the thoughts that we're thinking? Okay, so keep those really as the pillars of not just your personal life, but for your teaching. It's so important to live your teaching based off of these. They're a moral compass for how you want to serve. So these are basically your ethics. You can have more. They can be different. They could be your guidelines. They can inspire your ethics. But the sutras laid them out for us. and they work. They work wonderfully. So for example, are you attached to a way a shape should look? And then you go up to a student and they are not in the way that you think that they should look, so that you make an adjustment. You might be attached to the, quote, perfection of the pose rather than honoring that student's needs and wants. Okay? Non-stealing. Say you're adjusting and you see someone making a modification and you come up and you interrupt their state of mind and their presence. You might be stealing from them their experience of that moment. Purity, cleanliness. You're watching someone and a thought comes to your mind about something that happened earlier in the day and with a colleague, and you're angry and you're upset and you're ruminating over it, and then you go up and try to adjust your student. You're taking that energy that's not, quote unquote, I'm saying clean, which means saucha is where it comes from in Sanskrit, and that energy is now interacting with your student when they're trying to be present in the moment, right? So these are the why. They're just this continuation. It's a domino effect of everything in our life will play into the next thing. So just be mindful, especially when you get to the classroom and you're going to teach, what happened in your day that you're still dealing with, ruminating with, and have you sat with that material first before you go on and teach. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. Here we go. There's some visuals of them. Beautiful. All right. Moving onward. Potential issues of hands-on assist. So, here we go. The Me Too movement. We live in an increasingly litigious society. This is really important. And with that, it's super important to have your students feel autonomous and respect their boundaries. Consent is essential if you are going to be placing your hands on someone's body. You do not know what their experience is, and you might put their body in a state of shock. It might be very triggering. And then they're in a public space with other people around them. And even though your intention is to help them, you have not asked for consent. This is not okay. And it's interesting because this is not how yoga was in its original form. It was very, very hands-on. And I encourage you to, I forget the name, the documentary, but it's about Bikram Chaudhry and Bikram yoga. Do yourself a favor. It's intense, but it's important to know that not even that long ago, and still to this day, there's situations that are happening that are not okay. So more like this image, I took this. This is actually a real situation that had happened. And I chose to use this comic version instead of the real image. But basically, he's giving an adjustment here. She is in a hamstring stretch. And this is Patabi Joyce, who is an Ashtangi. He's no longer with us. Now, students came out by the loads and talking about inappropriate adjustments that they were receiving from him. And at that point in time, it was very much like, oh, this feels wrong, but oh, this is just part of the practice. So obviously this is not okay, right? We do not need to be doing this or being this close to our students. We don't know. He's no longer with us. We can't ask him. And at the same time, we can't even assume. You have to remember, I'm not saying that this is right. This is not okay at all. But he comes from a very strong background with his teacher. And that is how his teacher was with him, right? Very hands-on, very intense. So what happens in life is that's what he thinks is the way to teach yoga, and that's what he'll probably do. I don't know. We haven't been able to ask him these questions, but again, this is not okay. We need to respect people's boundaries, and consent is so essential. So, and then additionally, another potential issue of hands-on assist is your student injury free? Do you know that? Are our students or the teacher, are we idealizing flexibility, right? We see so much on Instagram of like really wild flexibility. Is that really necessary? And then also adjustments, physical adjustments, there's a risk of injury. So that image of that woman pulling, there's an X, like don't be doing that, right? And then I talked about this before too. Do we create, if we're constantly adjusting, say, one or two students, then are we helping them feed that hunger to feel connected to their teacher? Or more important than the other student? Or, oh, my teacher sees me, or my teacher thinks my practice is great and wants to give me attention. These are all potential issues. Now, as you sit in this course, I am giving you the information. I will give it to you on both sides, and I will also give you this afternoon on how to give adjustments safely with consent, and to be mindful of my students' injuries and my intention of why I'm adjusting them, and to keep them in a very balanced, structured state of student and teacher relationship. All very important. And additionally, you'll see more of this. I think it's phenomenal. I work with one studio, and they have, well, before COVID, they started implementing these no and yes cards. So no, thank you for an assist, or I do want a hands-on adjustment. And it was great for me as a teacher because one, it was very clear. And two, if the student wanted to change their mind, they simply could flip the card over, or vice versa. Maybe something happens and their experience, they're fine. They're like, yes, I want adjustments. And then maybe there's a song that's played or something pops into their mind and they get kind of an emotional activation and they're like, no, thanks, I don't want it. So that is giving autonomy to the students in any given moment, which is excellent because there's, schools of thought that you should, one, ask at the beginning of class. Yes, you definitely should, especially if you don't have these cards. And then there's further schools of thought that even if you ask in the beginning of class, that you should ask in any given posture that you go and adjust. So that could be a lot of asking, and then that could also take away from the flow of the class. I see comments coming in, so if someone would like to share, that'd be great.
I just have a quick question, since you brought up COVID. Moving forward in the current state that we're in, do you think that hands-on assisting is kind of going to be a change? There's going to be a change, and we're going to move into more verbal assisting. I teach dance for a living, and so we are in that conversation currently. Talking about how verbal assisting is kind of going to be the new hands-on.
Yes, this is great. I mean, we have no idea how long this will last. And I was reading an article yesterday, and in the European Union, COVID cases are drastically decreasing. And then in the US, we're peaking back up, which is awesome, right? And it's extremely disheartening. But yes, I think it's going to be quite a while before we get back to hands-on assisting. So it's a reality that we'll have to deal with, and that is where we'll have to really explore our language skills and communication of what we're trying to help and support our students in different planes of movement, whether it's subtle or gross movement. So yes, I think it's going to be, who knows how long, and especially is our job as instructors, whatever field we're in, remember that one of the yamas is nonviolence, right? So even though our intention might not to be violent, we don't know if maybe we're asymptomatic and we pass it along. We don't know. We at this point, who really knows what's actually happening? So I think it will be, yes, quite a while before there's hands-on adjustments again. Great question. And then I saw some more coming in since then too.
Christine?
Yes. Hi.
Oh, you can hear me. Great. I've got transferring the energy because now I teach for Zoom, so it's a bit different. But I was told that the way how
you're breaking up. I can't hear you. Perhaps if you chat.
fingers. Oh, can you hear me?
Now I can. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry. I was just wondering whether it's better to use just like the the palm when you have more muscles, or the fingers. I was told like with the fingers you transfer less energy and you are more gentle, and when you use the palm it's like more like in terms of transferring energy. Is that true? Is that any differently depending on the student and the position, choosing like more fingers or more palm?
That's a great question. I'll get there towards the end of today. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Sorry if I'm breaking up.
No, you're okay. Thank you. Okay, so just think of these things, right? We have to know to be aware of consent, autonomy or boundaries, injuries that your students may have had from the past. If we or the student is idealizing flexibility, are we pushing to a place where there's injury, or are we negatively impacting the relationship of the student and with ourselves? Okay. I don't want to miss anyone's comments. I see them coming in. I'm going to actually exit this for just a moment and stop sharing so I can see your comments. Okay. More verbalization. Yes. Okay. Emotional activation is so much better than triggered. Yes. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. This is great. So people, this is the next slide. So people are craving connection, right? And physical touch. Yes. Okay. Yep. Physical contact, we can ask about that in regards to COVID too. We'll get into the practice and technique of touch as well. Yes, yes. And that's great to have that actual relationship with your students. I think that's really key, and we're looking for that, to feel that they feel more comfortable and familiar with you and your style and your adjustments. The thing is, you might not always have the consistent base of your students. Maybe you hop to another studio and things like this, or new students come in, students who are deaf. Oh, yeah. So for them, they're going to need to have demonstration. It's going to be super necessary for them. I will be making cards tonight. I love it. And you can also, there's places where you can buy them, these cards as well. Yeah, it's just easier for them to flip, so you don't have to be asking. Yep, and I'll be explaining all this. We're just getting into the code of conduct here. Okay, I'm going back in. Yeah, I think Etsy does. I think Yoga Alliance might have them too. All right, here we go. Sharing screen. Okay, so benefits. When we are mindfully helping our students with physical adjustments, we can help them avoid unsafe alignment. Super important. We obviously, one of our morals or values, if we're practicing the yamas and niyamas, is nonviolence. We don't want our students to injure themselves. Additionally, someone was mentioning how they're a massage therapist and they have gone back to work and opened back up. Is there a question? No? Okay. And people are craving, oh, that goes down, connection. And so it cultivates connection with your students, but it also helps release and relax the student in the pose. So in the sutras, there's a sutra that says Stiram Sukham Asanam. And this means that we abide in our asanas with strength and ease, or stability and softness. And sometimes we have individuals who may be more type A, and we might have individuals that are more type B. The type A individual might be very tense and tight as they move through the postures themselves. They're gripping, they're pushing to a place that feels like 100% or 110%. You can see the tightness and tension in their jaw or their eyebrows. They're really focused and they're going a mile a minute in terms of how much they're applying physically in their body. Okay? They might need a guiding touch, more of an assist, right? Remember this, to help support or aid them into a place of softening or bringing that student back towards sukha, sweetness. Okay? whereas we might have a student who is a beginner or a more relaxed type of individual, more, if we're looking at the kleshas, more of a tamasic energy, and they are maybe just kind of like warrior 2, reverse warrior, something like this. They might need more support, stability in their practice, right? So that might be looking at their feet in warrior 2. Are they kind of collapsed in? It could be as simple as this adjustment of coming down. And
now all of a sudden he's leaving and she's coming back.
Well, she's coming back. That's why.
Hi, can you make sure you mute yourself, please? Or if you're asking a question. Okay, hold on. Exit. Okay. Thanks, guys, for your patience.
He's leaving, so I would do that. Hey, he's going to be leaving and going to college. Hey,
Right.
I don't know why it keeps unmuting. Okay, there we go back in. All right, here we go. Oh, really?
We get in, check that thing, they'll text me that.
I don't understand why it keeps happening. Okay, I think I'm trying to figure out who is. They're good. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. All right, we're going back in. Here we go. This is the real yoga, y'all. The patience. Okay, here we go. Oh, I chose the wrong one.
Then eat something in the interim. I told
I just want to get a double day.
What keeps happening?
told you. I needed to
Someone's.
see what their thing was. They didn't respond.
It's Kelly K. If you can find Kelly K and mute her, it keeps popping up Kelly K.
Yeah, Kelly, please, I just muted you, but for some reason it keeps unmuting. I'm not sure why. But now I have her here, so I can quickly. Thank you. Okay, here we go. Potential. Okay, benefits. So, okay, here we go. Beautiful. And then it also encourages mindfulness. So we're creating ease for the type A individual, or softening, and we're creating stability for the perhaps more tamasic individual who's more relaxed. And then here we are also encouraging mindfulness. And with that, it provides deeper insight into the energetics of the posture. So with that, this is really common. When you go, think back to yourself as a brand new yoga student. Maybe that's currently, or maybe that's a few years ago or a decade ago, whatever that is. Think back and remember and recall the cues in which your teacher was giving you. It was overwhelming. You're in a new experience. No one's wearing shoes, right? A public place with no one's wearing shoes. You're sweating. The teacher's saying, warrior 2, vinyasa, right and left, right leg, left leg. That in itself, those are the gross movements, right? Those larger movements. That is overwhelming and a lot of information that is new for an individual. It is almost like learning a new language. So then you keep going and you keep going and you feel familiar yourself with the postures and you're like, okay, I get it. High lunge, I got my warrior 3. So now you're understanding the generalized shapes because of the consistency of your practice. Wonderful. Then the teacher starts cueing. For an example, I'm going to show you. I don't know if this shirt was really the best option here. Okay, so you're in warrior 3. I'm in warrior 3. I'm going to warrior 3. Now, the tendency.
We can't see you right now.
Oh, right. Oh my goodness. Yes. Okay, let me come out of this. Thank you for saying that. Oops. Thanks for sharing. Okay. So now can you guys see me? Can you guys see
Not yet. I'm still just seeing the keynote.
Oh, okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. So thanks. So I'm going to Warrior 3. And okay, I think I know what Warrior 3 is. I'm just going to do it with my hands to my heart because I'm speaking to you guys too, and I want to show you something. Now, the common thing in Warrior 3 is that this back leg will want to wrap out like this. I'm exaggerating the movement, but you can see that my back thigh bone is rotating out, right? And then the teacher says, I want you to lower your right hip so it's even with your left. That student might hear what you're saying, but then to take that knowledge, hear it, and apply it to their body and understand where that teacher is specifically communicating to that body part, that is a skill of proprioception, right? And that in itself is really challenging. Maybe you're in it right now still. Maybe that you remember that. I remember it specifically being a student. I think it was Warrior 3 actually. And my teacher cueing, lower your right hip, something paraphrasing, to be even with your left hip. And I could hear her and she could see me trying to do it. But then she came over and just placed her hand on my right hip. She didn't move me at all. And I had that tactile touch, with her verbal cue that I understood, oh, this is what I can lower down. So, I'm in Warrior 3. Okay, my hip is wrapping outwards. Because the glutes are so strong, that's why it will happen. Okay, so if I say, lower my right hip down, now I can think, okay, I'm lowering my right hip down. The low back is neutral. Or the teacher comes over and says, lower your right hip down, puts a palm, oh, my hip. Or they might say, wrap your inner thigh to the sky, but touching the inner thigh is a little bit more risky here. So we're looking for a neutral spine. So understand, this is really fascinating with yourself. When you're teaching and you cue something and you don't really see your students applying the cue, it's not that they don't hear you or they're being rude. They might not know how to integrate that cue into their body. They've never done that before. How are they going to know? We live in a society that we are so disconnected from our physical body. We live in our brain. We live in the computer of our head all the time, right? Everything that we take in through our senses is basically our eyes, ears, nose, mouth, right? Our taste. And we're constantly thinking. We're so disattached. So we need to help students move from a thinking mind to a feeling body. And this takes time. So maybe the verbal cues aren't only going to be the way. Yeah, it's overwhelming. It is a new language. So it's okay. Yeah. Yes. Oh yeah. So that's sexual harassment lawsuits. That's what I was saying. The Me Too movement. That's why we need to ask for consent from our students. Okay. Of course. All right. I just wanted to show you. Now I know. So many buttons, all the things. Okay. Going back in. I hope that was helpful. All right. So we're helping elicit more mindfulness for our students and increasing mind-body connection. And then, yes, we can help our students deepen the posture and experience new sensation that they might not have felt if they didn't receive that adjustment. So here, this is a great adjustment. She's helping her draw her shin bone slightly forward, at the same time energetically helping guide that front thigh bone back. She's creating stability and a little bit of space. And she's staying connected to her student. What's my next slide? Okay, I'm gonna go back to this real quick. So a little bit about me. Some of you already know this, but my background is in Ashtanga yoga, and it was in that setting, which was called a Mysore setting, which means there would be a room full of students. Everyone's working on their own pace with generally the same sequence at their own pace. You memorize the sequence. There's no music. And the teacher comes around and either helps remind you what posture is coming next. They might give you a new posture to continue to lengthen the sequence. And they are also providing physical adjustments throughout the class. I am still friends with my Ashtanga teacher, and interestingly enough, she had taught Ashtanga for 15 plus years and recently just retired that life, which was kind of shocking, actually, that she did. She was my mentor to teach Ashtanga, and from her, I assisted under her and then eventually started teaching myself. And we're actually friends. We don't see each other often. She doesn't live in Austin, Texas anymore, but yeah, she's a great friend, which is a whole other thing we can talk about. Anyways, that practice is very hands-on. Like I was saying, that image in the beginning of Patabi Joyce, she, and not in a sexual way or anything at all, but literally had her body weight on top of me in several different postures. In all the postures. I learned my adjusting and feeling comfortable adjusting through my practice with her. And for me, and I'll touch back to someone who's talking about massage, when I moved to Austin, I didn't know a single soul. I didn't know anyone. And I found her space and I started going, and it was like the only physical contact that I was getting. And I really enjoyed it. It felt amazing. It felt really relaxing to me and stabilizing. But it was very hands-on, and I do not adjust like that. And I never even did when I was doing Ashtanga, not to that extreme. But that was just part of the Ashtanga culture. She never received any lawsuits or anything like that. The students had a strong relationship with her, where it was very different than a flow-based class where you have a lot of new students coming in. They would work with this teacher for years. So there's that too. But that is my background of my experience of adjusting. But we also talked about the risk of injury. So we have, it can be very healing, right? And then there's also risk of injury. Now take a moment and feel free to share if you would like to, if you have a story that you want to share that will be beneficial for other students. But I had another Ashtanga teacher, which was also her student, and he often would cover for her if she wasn't around. And I trusted him. Great. He had an awesome practice. But one time he was adjusting me in a pose where it's called Supta Karmasana, which you slide your arms behind your legs in like a wide straddle, and then you wrap them behind your back into a bind. And he was trying to snuggle my shoulders underneath so I could clasp my hands at my low back. And in that moment, I felt a pop in my clavicle. It didn't hurt at all, but it felt weird. And I did the rest of the practice. I finished. And then later that evening, I was leaning on a kitchen counter and I kind of collapsed in my shoulder because I had sublocated my clavicle from my manubrium, which is the base of your sternum, the top of your sternum. And sublocation means that it had popped out and popped back in, so it was really weak. That was not his intent. His intent was not to hurt me, but I got injured from that assist. So even if we have the best mind set and intention going in adjustment, we just don't know how that person's body is. I received that adjustment multiple hundreds of times before and nothing ever happened, right? And I didn't have any injuries before either until that point in time. So again, just be mindful that asking yourself why, right? And I say deepen the posture, and we'll get into that, because again, is it deepening the posture for the aims of idealizing or moving to a range of motion and flexibility that is really not beneficial to us, that is past the beneficial point? Does anyone have any things they wish to share about their own experience?
I was just wondering how common adjustments are. I know we've got people from all over the world here and a lot of people in the States, because where I live in Canada, I find adjustments are quite rare. Like I can go months without even seeing an adjustment in class. And that's with a variety of teachers.
Yeah, so this is great. The main tradition that you'll see adjustments in is Ashtanga yoga. That is the practice itself. And now we're seeing, I think it's twofold. One, people aren't trained in it, and so they feel not comfortable with themselves as a teacher giving the adjustment. That's one thing. And then the second thing is there's three. People don't want to hurt anyone and injure anyone and be held accountable for that. And then the third is autonomy, boundaries, consent, and the whole Me Too movement and sexual misconduct, that teachers don't want to be pulled into that category. But that, again, we can offer adjustments if we're looking post-COVID and things of this sort in a very healthy, supportive way. But you're right, it's very rare. I'll go to studios to practice, or I was, and I would barely ever get an adjustment. And personally, for me, I really like having an adjustment. They feel really wonderful, and but at the same time, I want to have a relationship with the teacher who's going to adjust me. And you can even say that to the teacher, like, if you give adjustments, I do appreciate them. But you're right, you don't see them very often. People are a little concerned about injuring or what that might elicit in their students.
Christine, it's Crystal. I find where I am, I don't know who the other person was, I'm also in Canada. We do hands-on adjustments, but it depends on, I think, how comfortable the teacher is. So I find if I go to newer teachers, they are not comfortable at all. Some of the more experienced teachers, or teachers that took their training, like I have one teacher who took her training in Bali, she's definitely a lot more hands-on, but she's also kind of built relationships with more of the students. And then some of the other teachers I find that were trained here in the town that I'm in, they were taught not to do hands-on at all, or they're very nervous about doing hands-on, is what I find.
Yes. So then again, we go back to, it's the lineage that we were trained in, right? If the teacher that we learn from is, no, do not adjust, do not adjust, do not adjust, that's what's going to be ingrained into that teacher. Or if they are taught through a teacher in a lineage that says, you can do this very mindfully and impactfully in a beneficial way, they're going to feel more empowered to do it. So this training isn't to say you have to or you don't have to. This is to encourage that you ask yourself if that's something you want to do or not to do. And I think as a society as a whole, we have this tendency that we don't think for ourselves. We want other people to think for us and give us the answers with everything. That's very common. And so the way I want to teach you guys, and my hope and my offering, is that I'm presenting both sides of the spectrum, and you can choose and work with the material. And the best place to start is with your friends, your families, your loved ones, if they're willing to engage in kind of an experiment with you. And especially because they're going to be more honest with your feedback. right? Like, that actually really sucked. That like did not feel good, or that was amazing, or that felt a little awkward, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the best students, are the people that are going to be completely honest with you if you're wanting to explore this. There's another question that's coming in. Okay, I'm gonna move forward. Time always goes so quickly with these. Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, something on that. Some of the best verbal assists I've gotten, especially when you're in like a big class, you obviously can't, or the instructor can't go around and, adjust everyone with a position, especially when you have a lot of new people. But I found that when when they're in a certain position and you tell them like where they should be feeling it, to where they can like adjust their body, like, okay, so you should be really feeling this in your IT band or the back of your thigh or what have you. I found that that's really beneficial to me, because I can do my own, like, well, I'm not feeling it there, so maybe if I do, move this a little bit or that a little bit to where I'm feeling it, to where they are, telling me where I should be feeling it, that's really been helpful for me.
Yes, that's great. I'm glad you added that in. Yeah, and also I don't know if you caught yourself, but you had this awareness of, as teachers, especially as we learn more information and knowledge, we might be sharing a lot of anatomical knowledge, which is exciting for us as individuals and teachers. And the best way that we integrate material is by teaching, right? We learn through teaching, that's why yoga is so amazing, because you get to apply the practice over and over again. But be mindful of over-utilizing anatomical verbiage to your students, because that is another thing that will go right over their head, where if you are going to use anatomical language, follow up by giving a layman's language so that they actually understand, and that you are giving them application of, okay, feeling this in your IT band. Someone's like, IT band? What is that? I have no idea. Okay, along the outer thigh. And that gives them more ownership and insight into their own body. And I think whoever was just sharing that you're not on mute, so if you could mute yourself, that'd be great. Unless you want to follow up. Another question. Thank you. Is there anything else before we move on? Any
I'm
stories?
just curious. Hi.
Hi.
I'm just curious about, sometimes I feel, and I hope this doesn't sound terrible, that there's too much talking. Like, is there such a thing as, or is there a class that maybe is more directed to not so much talking and cueing? Or is that totally wrong on offside? But that's my question.
Yeah, again, it goes back to the intention of the teacher. I think, yes, you're right that there can be a lot of speaking, and it's and maybe that ends up being your style to speak less. And yes, there's definitely benefit of silence. You'll notice in my teacher training, I'm going to be speaking quite a bit more, because it is meant to be educational. But yes, even in the studio, there can be a lot of dialogue. And I think there's multiple reasons why. One is the teacher wants to educate. And two, I think that there's this feeling if there's too much silence, then that might perhaps shift the student's awareness to wander and not think about their body or their breath, because that is what we do as human beings, and we'll wander into different places. And the teacher's intention perhaps might be, I'm trying to bring the student into the present moment. But I would encourage you to check out a yin class or a restorative class, which is generally quiet and a lot of space for silence.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right. So we have about 30-ish minutes left before break. So different options in terms of how we can assist or adjust. So we talked about this. Verbal. Use the power of your voice. You can use it to cue gross movement, large movements. Oh, and if you could mute yourself, that would be great too. Subtle movement and breath to support the students so that they integrate and apply the teacher's instruction into their own body. So it's important that you speak with clarity and that you speak loud enough that your students can hear you. So that means, additionally, if you're playing music, that the music isn't overpowering your voice. That is why my music choices in teacher training, it's generally, I don't play music, but in classes, if I can control the music myself, that the music is generally instrumental, that there is no or very little lyrics, because I don't want it to fight with my cues, if that makes sense. Music is secondary, right? It comes after. That's just additional. I think someone's also not on mute. Okay, and then demonstration. So you just have to check in with your studio. Some studios say, do not demo. We're obviously living in a world of Zoom right now, so generally the teacher is doing the sequence like I was just doing with you, so that's different. But in a classroom setting, be mindful that you aren't going into the habit of doing the whole class with your students, because if you are, you can't really watch them. However, if you are trying to verbalize and cue students maybe through a more intricate posture, there's more nuances and details to it, and they're not quite getting it, then feel free to actually sit them down and walk them through or demonstrate how to get in the posture and how to transition out of it. Because again, if we go back to that VARC method, some people are very visual learners, and that maybe they just need to see you do it once and it's an aha moment. They get it. I see that. Okay, I'm watching them and their body mechanics. Now I can do it. I feel it in my own body, and I will not need them to demonstrate that anymore for me. So that's another excellent option to show them. So for example, we have this woman demonstrating how to get into an arm balance, or what we call baby crow pose. This pose, if you're familiar with it, it's tricky to cue. You can see there's a lot of moving parts, where her arm is placed, where her foot is placed, how she's twisting and rotating, and etc. Is there a question or comment?
Yeah, I commented that having a mirror in class is really helpful for the teacher to look in the mirror while she's doing the pose to see how the class is doing. And I've been in classes like that. It's really good. And it's also good for the student to take a peek at themselves to see if they're out of alignment or, you know, some other issue in their pose. It's really good.
This is great. I'm glad you brought the mirrors up. So I've worked with both situations in studios, mirrors and no mirrors. When I originally, my first exposure to yoga was Bikram, and it was like too overwhelming with mirrors. I was brand new to yoga, and it was just, my nervous system was seeing way too much. And then I worked with a studio and practiced at a studio where there was no mirrors, and I thought it was incredible. It made me very introspective and looking more within, and less concerned with the physical form of how I looked and the tendency to look at other individuals and wander. And then I worked at another studio with mirrors, and just like you said, I thought it was very beneficial that students could look and adjust their own alignment, and I could be looking at the backs of the students and still look in the mirror and see their front view, which was helpful for me as well. And now now there's no mirrors at the studios I work with, and so I've had multiple feelings and experiences of them all. I think mirrors are great for adjusting physical assist on your own body. However, I also think they can be distracting, and make it very much about a physical experience rather than looking within. And again, you can choose the studio you teach at, maybe, or you practice at, and experience both of them, and see how it makes you feel inside. There is benefits to both, but I'm glad you brought that up for sure. Okay, so these are demonstration and verbal cues we talked about, and then props and self-assist, which is what the focus of this class was this morning. So that is teaching and empowering your students to use their own hands and limbs or blocks to adjust subtle or even subtle movements and to create space or more stability for their own body. This is really cool, and this is where the shift is happening right now in what we're seeing with COVID, and then also sexual misconduct and boundaries. And then someone also mentioned too, if we have the ability to help our students self-assist and we give strong, clear verbal direction, one, it empowers the students, and two, there's only one of you in the classroom, and say your classroom is full of, even if it's 10, 20, 50 plus people, you can't give that adjustment to every student, right? So that's why this is some powerful work here. So even this woman, hand on belly, hand on heart, I gave you guys that pretty early on in class with your hands on belly. That is considered a self-assist. You are feeling your body breathe, which generally we as human beings are stressed that we breathe very shallow in the chest, the upper region. And to help us calm down and ground down, we need to move our breath into our abdomen. So even being able to cue that for your students, game changer of, oh, I can feel myself breathing. That in itself, even if you only do that, will be a benefit to your students. And then we see this woman here with a block, helping her to create more stability, and in doing that, create more space and the rotation of her torso and the elongation of her side body. Adding on, for some reason, many teachers or studios have and or see, especially blocks and straps, almost as a crutch to the practice itself. But how about if we shift our mind to see them as amazing tools to bring the earth up higher to us, to enhance our practice, to advance our practice, to provide more space and support for our bodies. The blocks are amazing, and we can thank BKS Iyengar for them, who is the creator of Iyengar Yoga, that we can use them, and they're amazing tools. Why wouldn't we use them to help us and to help our students, right? And or then we think it takes too much time. But really, the idea is less can be so much more for our students, right? We can impact their body and their nervous system and their mind with more ease by helping, for example, the student use a block rather than grimace and ache to reach the floor and feel less than because that feels or doesn't look a certain way as the person next to her that might look more seamless and fluid. Right? Yoga isn't one size fits all, so we need to be mindful to help our students feel empowered. I'll pause. I feel like some questions are coming in.